Hello and welcome. My name's Joe Phillip. I'm Head of Business Development here at JTF Marketing, and I'm hosting this session today, How to Master Email Templates in Marketo. This session is recorded, so you can watch back and share with colleagues after also. Email is the main channel most businesses are using Marketo for. So your email template is absolutely critical to your success. So today we're going to explore some best practices, hints, and even take you through a live demo of a template today. So JTF Marketing, we work with organizations across the world to unlock more value from Marketo, which often takes the form of forward-facing marketing operations, campaign support, and of course, template development. So in terms of what we're going to cover today's session, lovely to introduce Paddy, who is one of our marketing automation consultants here at JTF Marketing. He's going to be taking you through some email marketing best practices, some of the common challenges that many of you are likely to be facing in Marketo with your email templates. We're then going to start to talk about what makes a good email template and even see a good email template in action. There will be some time at the end for some questions, and we've also got an exclusive new download to share with you towards the end of the session also. So Paddy, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you all on the call. And I've just skipping ahead. There we go. I just thought this would be a good slide to start on, and it actually surprised me, if I'm honest. So having a look at a couple of stats in the preparation for this, and the first thing I wanted to pull out was this 4 billion daily email users, kind of leveraged against this logic of an average of 122 emails per day for each of those users. Kind of leaves you with 4 trillion or over 4 trillion daily emails floating around there in the ether. And it really made me think, it's easier said than done to kind of cut through the mustard and have your email show up in somebody's inbox or be recognized or read. So what we're going to talk through today, I think, just makes it that bit more important when we look at it through that lens there. So touching on email design as kind of the first topic, there's a couple on the left there. There's 4 strands that I've really pulled out that I think are really important just to touch on. So the first there is around hierarchy and layout. We're going to come later on in the slides into a bit of a demo of how you can use Marketo's email templates. But I think one thing, because Marketo's email templates are so flexible that as I say, you'll see that in a couple of slides' time. It can often be easy to overcomplicate things. So this kind of logic of drag and drop. I've got lots of lovely shiny modules over here that I can pull into my email. It's very easy to overcomplicate things, and suddenly you really lose that clarity that you need within an email of what do you want me to read, what do you want me to know, and what do you want me to do as a customer, as a recipient of that email. Responsive design is really important. So that stat over there on the right, 41.9% of email views are viewed on mobile phones. Obviously, that would be totally different 10 years ago or potentially even longer. We really now need to work from this mobile first approach. So everything needs to be thought of, how is this going to look on a mobile versus how is this going to look on a desktop? A desktop is important, and I think it becomes more important when we think of all of the internal stakeholders that are viewing this email that you've created on a desktop device. But actually, the people that we really need to understand and take action off the back of this email are more often than not going to be viewing it on a mobile. So just really keep that in the back of your mind as you build emails. Consistent branding is really important. So it's rare to see a marketing team of one these days. There'll often be more than one individual creating emails, sending emails. There's often a design team in the mix there as well that then passes it over to the marketing team or the marketing automation team, whoever that is. So there's lots of opinions and lots of potential there for kind of messy branding. So really just be aware of that when you're working within your email templates. And again, there's some opportunities that we can make that a little bit easier for you and try and limit any risk moving forward. And then call to action clarity. So links to that point at the top, but making sure that you're not using 10 different calls to action. Not to say you should only have one, but it should be clear what you want that customer to do when they open the email. And if you do have secondary calls to action, then maybe think about how we position those, or how we use color within the email or something like that to make them secondary and have a very clear primary call to action. Email deliverability is another interesting topic. So I think, you can make the most pretty, well-designed email. And if it doesn't deliver, if it doesn't land in somebody's inbox, then it's kind of not worth anything. So a couple of points in this one. The first one there, to authenticate your emails. So there's a couple of components within Marketo that you need to really make sure that you're on top of. Just calling a few out there: SPF, DKIM, all of those things that just manage reputation essentially. And then if you jump down to the bottom there, that last point about sender reputation, anything that you're sending from that from address or from that domain is going to influence that reputation score. And that doesn't have to just be your marketing emails. So if you've been sending from that domain in the past, or your sales team potentially send from that domain, anything like that could be influencing that reputation. So just be really, really cautious about what comes from it, and make sure that you have the highest reputation that you possibly can, because you'll get a higher engagement off the back of it and a higher delivery rate. Managing your email lists. So making sure that you're sending to a clean database is really important, again, for that reputation, and then the obvious deliverability component there. So if you're sending to an email address that doesn't exist, there's not a huge chance that it's going to land in anybody's inbox. So just really being careful about who you're sending to. And then that last bit of personalization and segmentation. So the more you segment, the more personalized and contextualized your emails are, the more likelihood of somebody opening it and engaging with it. And then off the back of that, your engagement goes up, your reputation goes up. Everything's looking good. It's kind of a bit of a snowball effect, one after the other there. And then accessibility. So the stat on the right there is really interesting. Around 15% of people globally live with a disability, and of them, 285 million are considered visually impaired. To what degree, we don't know, but there are components of email and of email design particularly that just aren't tailored to people within that segment of individuals there. So, things like color contrast, your branding may, steer you towards something like a yellow font on a white background, but somebody that is struggling to view your email isn't going to be able to read that effectively enough. So you've really got to consider some of those things. The other one that's really important throughout a couple of these points is email readers. So it's not just actually people with visual impairments that use email readers. A lot of people increasingly are using email readers, like in the car, for instance, during a commute, and getting their emails read out to them, and even replying through text these days. So you've really got to consider, can your email be read by not only a human, but a computer? And can it be read out and made sense of to whoever's listening to it? So that also links to the points there of alternate text for images. If an image doesn't show, what is the reader going to pick up? Even if the images are just turned off. So some clients are increasingly doing that, not allowing images to show. What is it saying? Can I understand the email, the context of the email without that image? Using semantic HTML tags, standard H1, H2s, things like that, just so that it understands the important information. And then You will also notice if you've been using Marketo a lot that there's a text only option in there as well, making sure that that is readable, as I say, for both an individual and for a machine, because you can often click on it and realize that it's turned to kind of gibberish, that there's a lot of HTML in there, a lot of code in there that really couldn't be digested by anyone. So then what makes a good template? So the big difference here is, for me, is between an email and a template. So a template, certainly within Marketo, is the template that we use to create said email. So the template has to be flexible enough that you can create all of the emails that you possibly want using those modular blocks. So the idea is you've got everything that you could want, you drag and drop into whatever hierarchy you need. So that can be as simple as a header, an image, and some text and a call to action. Or you can really start to layer that up so that you get some really interesting emails that have a really interesting hierarchy, almost moving from that primary call to action through to some secondary information down towards the bottom. Include things in there like UTMs. Again, there's some things where we can leverage Marketo's ability to almost auto-populate that. So rather than you filling in UTMs for every single email, can we use tokens within Marketo to say, you know, maybe the UTM campaign is the program name or something along those lines. Set it and forget it kind of logic. And then the other point in there that's really worth noting is dark mode friendly. Now, obviously, there's more than just dark mode to think about, but all of those kind of new components that the email clients are bringing out, things like the one-click unsubscribe, the dark mode that we've called out there, that responsiveness that again is called out on here. There's quite a few elements that we need to think about when we create an email. So let's bake those things into the template so you don't need to think about them every single time you create an email. And then there are some common challenges. So Outlook is the first one. It's everybody's the kind of the bane of everybody's life as a marketeer. It tends to do some weird and wonderful things with marketing emails. It can kind of strip out images, change the styling, click on all your buttons so you can't track effectively. It's a few things that we can try and put in place to not be as affected by those things that Outlook does. There's nothing we can do to stop a lot of it, but we can try and make the best of it. Endless bugs. So again, the issue with templates, because they are we build the template once and then all your emails are then built off the back of that template. If you don't get the template right and there's bugs in the template, there's going to be bugs in every single email that you create. So it's really important to make sure that template is working as it should. It renders correctly in all browsers and all clients, and that it can't really be butchered by anybody. We can try and limit it down, limit those variables and things where we need to. And then coding skills is always an issue. We don't have it as much these days because drag and drop builders are much better than they ever have been. But there was a time where you had to code every single email, and some places still do. And it's just an absolute resource drainer. So it's definitely something that we want to try and avoid if we can.
Thanks very much, Paddy. That's all been super interesting so far. I will just remind everybody we have got some questions coming at the end, so please do start to throw your questions into the Q&A box if anything comes up, especially as we start to go through the demo that's coming up shortly. So, as you might well expect, JTF Marketing have also been listening to various bits of feedback over the years in terms of how do we actually maximize our Marketo emails. And as Paddy mentioned, it starts, of course, with an email template. So here is our brand new master template for Marketo. So what you'll notice straight away is there's lots of variation in terms of the modules that are flashing up on your screen now. what we've really tried to do here is bake in from its core usability, super easy to use, and lots of functionality. Now, this template is fully customizable based on your branding, your images, your fonts, your colors, everything like that to really reflect your brand. The template itself provides you with the modules and with the framework to really make that happen. No surprise that we've optimized for dark mode. There's no coding whatsoever required. It's been built by Marketo experts so that it works perfectly once it's into your Marketo instance. We've also worked on lots of different variable functionality and the use of snippets to really make your life as easy as possible. Now, that is just the start. So what we've also done now with our master template is add on a series of module packages. So depending on your use cases and how you're actually sending emails out and the way that you want to format your content, we now have these 5 module packages to really start to bring your email game to life. So moving from left to right on the screen, you'll see that we've got our layered package. So this starts to use background imagery with text overlay and different boxes overlay. These also are just snippets of some of the modules within those module packs. So that one will really start to bring the images to life and allow you to layer across the text so that you start to get more visually appealing emails. Also easier to translate when it comes to mobile, where you're able to show image and text to really show off a specific message. We've then got various different image focused modules there so that you can start to see how you can use collages and various different images, especially if you have very product focused marketing. We've then in the middle there got our customer engagement package. So we're looking at ways that we can start to really shout about testimonials or case studies using quotes from different success stories, along with different tools such as taking people through journeys and also surveying. We then have our events and webinar modules. So we've got everything from countdown timers to speaker bios to agendas, anything that you might need to really display and maximize webinar and event emails. And last but not least is our e-commerce or product focused modules. So you'll see there, they're very image, text and CTA focused so that you're really able to drive action based on what the message is there. And we've had some great success with those modules already with one of our product focused customers that we've been working with. So I'll hand over now back to Paddy to take us into Marketo to show us what it really looks like in the tool itself. And remember, please do throw any questions into the Q&A box as we're going through, and we will have some time shortly after to take questions.
Thank you. So I'm hoping you can see that and I haven't flicked off onto the wrong screen there. So please shout if that's not the case. So hopefully this looks pretty familiar based off what you've seen. Obviously it's branded up in JTF branding. So you'll see the JTF colors. The beauty of this though is that we would take this and then apply all of your branding. So the backgrounds could be defaulted, the call to action color, the fonts, everything is customizable within this. What you can then do is layer up. You can see as I hover over sections, it kind of highlights that section. So you get this blue dotted line around this image in this instance. You can then layer up sections to create bigger modules. So one thing that we have done in the past is create big modules that have header images, headlines, calls to action. It's actually a little bit more limiting that way, because what we can now do is we can quite easily say, actually, I want more text, or I want no text. I just want an image by itself, or just a single line of text. And you can layer these components up to create almost any email. You can then use some of this variable functionality. So as I click into this call to action module here, you'll notice that over on the right, I get this variable panel. And there's 2 types of variables worth calling out. We have local variables and we have global variables. And again, these can be flexed depending on your use case. So what we've chosen to do is have call to action background color as a global variable. What that means is I can change the color of this first call to action here. Let's change it to some horrific green color just for the example. And it will change that call to action to that color throughout the entire email. So you can see here lots of ugly green buttons. For us, that works really well because we want to keep that call to action 1 the same throughout. That could equally be a local variable. The difference would be there. I would change the color in exactly the same way that I did there, but it would just, the variable would sit up in this section, and it would only change the color of that individual button. All the other buttons would stay the same. So that's just one example of a global versus a local variable, but you can apply that same logic across the board. So if there's something that you want to update once in your email and it updates the entire email, make it a global variable. If there's something that you want to update per module, then make it a local variable. We've just added in a few examples here, the most commonly used local variables, but this is certainly not to say that that is an exhaustive list. You can make almost anything variable in these templates. They are really, really flexible. We've used things like height, top space, bottom space. So if you want a bit more space between the body copy here and the call to action, you can use these kind of higher lower buttons to achieve that. We've also done the same for width. If you want to say make a bit more kind of padding, I suppose it would be left and right of the copy within that call to action, you can do. Alignment is a really interesting one. So if you want to say align those centrally, you can do. And that's really handy when you start thinking about that mobile first. Some modules may look better center aligned versus left or right aligned, depending on the device that they're viewed on. And then the last one to touch on in terms of variables within this module would be show hide functionality. So we've chosen to unlock that for show hide call to action 2. So if you just want a single call to action, we can hide call to action 2 and it'll leave us with our 1 call to action there. So you can apply a lot of those same variables across the board. So as you scroll down and I click on, say, this module here, you'll notice the same logic applies. We've just applied the variability to different components. So this one here has a show hide variable for the headline, for instance. It actually has quite a few. So what I tend to say is try to limit the number of modules that you have. If you're creating a custom template, try not to have 100 different module options because it just can become really, really messy. Instead, use this kind of really effective variable logic to say, this module here, I can hide a lot of the components and just be left with 2 images. It's kind of a toss up between, is that easier for you versus having a module with 2 images. If you use that module all the time, you might lean towards having a separate module. It's finding that balance that's the key. And then as I scroll down here, you'll start seeing some of those ones that you might have noticed on the previous slide there, such as tables. If I click onto this one, there's some interesting variability here. So you can select the number of rows. So we could hide a load of these rows if we only want a certain number. I'm doing it too quick, it's thinking about it. And that will leave us with the right number of rows. We can also do similar things in some of the other modules as we kind of scroll down here. There's some like imagery where we can show hide certain images. This is a good example of where you could have a variable that's showing 4 or 3 or 2 images, but actually because they're so commonly used, in this case, we feel like it's easier to have multiple modules that you can drag and drop. And then as I scroll down, there's just a couple others that are worth calling out. So this one here is really quite interesting. So we use this one as journey steps. So what you can actually do here is say how many steps are there within the journey. using this yes or no variability. And then you can say, which of the journey steps do I want to highlight? So you might say you're on stage 2 of a 5-step journey, and highlight number 1, number 2. It kind of indicates that you've completed the first 2 steps. And that's a really interesting module, really effective. And then the last one that I just wanted to call out was this one here, which is the plain text. There's actually 2 modules there. What this allows you to do is send an email out of Marketo that looks exactly like an email that you've just sent through an email provider. So it means it feels that little bit more personal for certain businesses. So we do work with certain businesses where having maybe a sales rep or somebody reach out to you directly maybe feels a little bit more personalized than a graphical email. And if you're one of those businesses, something like that would be really effective. So you can kind of apply a bit of creative license to that to say what would my template look like if I applied my branding to this, and hopefully you end up with something really effective.
Excellent.
Back to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Paddy. And yeah, please do keep throwing any questions into the chat. So I am excited to launch, as I mentioned at the start, a brand new free download today for a sample of our free email template. So a series of some of the modules that you've seen today, packaged up in a simple download that you can get either by scanning the QR code or visiting our website right now. It is live and it is being launched today on this webinar. So it's easy to take that template code, drop that into Marketo with the instructions that we provide, so that you can just start to get to grips with what using a best practice modular drag and drop template really is like. So I'll just leave that up there for another couple of moments. And Paddy, just to kind of get us started in terms of some questions that have come in while we leave this on screen. A couple of questions coming in around testing, and how do we test templates to ensure that they are compatible with various different mail clients, especially obviously Outlook being mentioned by a couple.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of solutions out there, online platforms that you can use. We choose to use one called Email on Acid that you may be familiar with, that is particularly good. And it almost breaks things down based on some of those slides that I showed earlier around design, deliverability, and accessibility. So a tool like that, it's going to allow you to really see how is this going to show up in different clients, different devices, in different modes, such as dark mode and things. And then also some of those accessibility components. I think I would recommend Email on Acid, but there are multiple tools out there that you could access.
Excellent. We've got one question coming around, question on the size of images. So the template that you showed has got a 640 wide image instead of 600 that they're using, and they're asking what the benefits are, or are there any issues with using 640 wide?
No. So one of the things that one of our templates will do is if you were to put that image into that module block, it would scale the image. What we're saying there, certainly within our templates, is from a lot of testing, as you can imagine, that size image works really well across all devices. And I think that's the problem with having that flexibility of, different image sizes. If you find the one that works and you test it rigorously, then I would suggest stick to it and use something like the placeholders that we've got there to try and limit any risk of somebody coming in and using an incorrectly sized image.
Excellent. Thanks, Paddy. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. So just one that's come in that I think I can actually answer, which is around the email templates. We've obviously shown you our master modular template today, but we do also have a full development team who can support any custom development requirements that you have. So very commonly where we would start would be the master modular template with the module packs and then additional customization layered on top. But if you have a fully custom email design that either an in-house or agency partner have designed for you, we can very much create that in best practice Marketo code. Equally, we can also support with the development of designs for you using one of our design partners. So yeah, any further more custom requirements that you have for email templates, we can very much support those also and would welcome any conversations. A few people also asking for more details on the master template that we've shared on screen today. If you want to further the conversation, please do reach out to myself or Paddy and we'll happily jump on a call and run you through everything that's included there. And we can certainly further that conversation and see what you think. Thank you very much, everybody, for your engagement and your questions today. We have unfortunately run out of time. When the webinar ends, there will be a quick survey that flashes up for you. We really would appreciate your participation in that, just to share some feedback with us. Again, thanks very much for joining us. This has been Mastering Email Templates in Marketo, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you.